Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's second session of our Time Machine 2020 conference. It's the third part, actually, of our conference. This session will be about our project scouting service and services to third parties, which was also already introduced once in one of our webinars. But yeah, we can always dive a little deeper into the subject, which we will do today. Again, having the panelists Selda Münster and Thomas Aigner. I will give the floor to both of them in a second. Just for the practicalities, we will have a question and answer part at the later stage, although you can, anytime you like, you can post questions into our question and answer chat window, which is available somewhere down in your menu, screen menu. And if you would like to interact more actively with the speakers, we can of course promote you to panelist and allow you to share your video or whatever you like. Yes, that's from my side. I would like to pass on to Selda, our leader and mastermind of the project scouting service. Selda.
Yes, Caroline, many thanks for your kind introduction, and I'm really happy to welcome you to our session here about project scouting and third-party services. And luckily, I'm not alone here, but several colleagues are with me in this session. And before starting with some content, please let me have a joint look on the schedule we have planned for today. So I'm really happy to welcome Thomas Aigner with us, one of the vice directors of the Time Machine organization, who will provide you and us an introduction. And afterwards, or after this, we would love to have a short look on the TMO services, the way as TMO can already support your projects, your activities, your company, your GLAM institution, your research facility. And one specific service we would like to highlight, this is a project scouting service. And of course, we would like to show you what project scouting service can do for you, but also in combination with the other services, how this ecosystem of services the TMO already offers to you could support your activities. And of course, one important point we have put it also on our table here is to highlight on some current funding opportunities on an EU scale and of course at a glance. And finally, we are happy and looking forward to come in touch with you, to discuss with you, as Caroline already mentioned, to have your questions, your suggestions, and of course, to come into talk and discussion with you. Maybe that's from my side, and now I'm happy to pass over to my colleague Thomas Aigner and have an introduction.
Thank you very much, Selda. Very well welcome also from my side. Let me talk a little bit about what has happened during the last year. Time Machine started as a project for the FED flagship program. And when we started that project, we became more and more aware of the fact that we must not rely or depend on some funding program of the European Union, because we realized that we had created a really unique alliance of many, many institutions all over Europe and now also all over the world. And that is a huge treasure that we should use. Samba, could you?
Habt ihr irgendwie einen Stromstecker irgendwie ausgetauscht?
And you see that at the moment we have almost 700 institutions involved in our network. And those 700 institutions comprise many more than 6,000 experts in our network. So this means we have a lot of potential and we have to use it somehow and not just rely on some funding programs. And one more thing we need to consider is that we not only have that huge network and community, we also have a really great plan for cultural heritage and technology for the future. This is the so-called roadmaps we developed within the CSA program. Next one. Maybe you remember we've created a huge program for cultural heritage and technology, divided in 4 pillars. I don't want to go into detail now. And that program is now part of a strategy of the European Union to shape the new Horizon program. But we don't get funded through this now. And that's why a very important part of our basic strategy is that we become, as far as possible, independent from funding programs, so that we stand on our own feet and we can act on our own. And that's why we transformed the project, the Time Machine project, into the Time Machine organization. And running an organization needs also a fundamental, sustainable strategy of financing. And a core part of that strategy is that we need a professional department, a professional team looking for funding opportunities, be it on a national level, be it on a European level, or be it also on a philanthropical level, maybe of foundations. And that's why we founded the Project Scouting Services Department that is run in Jena under the lead of Sander Münster, who is the mastermind of that department. Within the Time Machine organization, there are various kinds of possibilities of being part of the Time Machine organization. So you can be a member of our community, and as a member you can take advantage of the services that Sander and will explain afterwards. So first of all, you can become some kind of an observer member, so an associated member. This means you can look and see if there is something in it for you. You can become a regular member. This means you can take advantage of certain services in the Time Machine organization. Or also you can become a founding member, and as a founding member you can take the full advantage of all the services. Especially you get a preferred position in Time Machine organization initiated projects. And that's what it is, what are the advantages in our community. Sander, may I give the floor to you in order to explain us how the Project Scouting Services actually work. Thank you.
Many thanks for your kind introduction, Thomas. And now it's my part to introduce you to the TMO Services and the Project Scouting Service specifically. And one motivation for setting up a set of TMO specific services is that we figured out during the CSA phase, we luckily were able to run until February this year, that there are already many great opportunities available in Europe for a community on digital heritage and digital humanities. And vice versa, that there are also many demands of specific support of smaller and bigger supporting activities or also consultancy or also visibility and so on various scales, even at the moment. And that brought us to that idea to set up a set of TMO specific services to leverage and to support a TMO member community. You certainly know specifically or especially after these 2 days about various of these TMO services. So you frequently get news and information material, but also press activity and press releases via the communication hub, which does a great work in Vienna. Also, there are many dissemination activities. One of those activities, the local time machines, you have become aware this morning. And of course, one of the services or several of the services are around the research road mapping of the time machine organization to this instrument of the RFCs, which was introduced by yesterday. And I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about the project development services in a few minutes. What you may not know by now is that there is much more in for you. And during the last 2 years, we have woven close ties to various European institutions as a time machine organization in order to supporting our members also in other fields of work. And for instance, together with those bodies and institutions which are already active on these fields, for instance, to provide consultancy, support, and also, I would say, more concrete opportunities concerning IPR, for instance, entrepreneurship, or data management, and of course also for teaching and competency development, or for partnering and partner finding on local, on regional, on national, or European or worldwide scale. So, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to highlight on one of those examples or some of those examples, and one of those examples is related to providing innovation support structures. So TMO already initialized or started an activity which is independent from the TMO at the moment, but which is striving on a challenge, which is really obvious and important for many of the actors in the field of cultural heritage. And this is about that research and business innovation in this community are often only weakly linked to each other, and specifically with regards to commercial activities and commercial actors, these are mostly highly specialized small and medium enterprise companies, which are not linked to each other. So what took place was the founding of the so-called DMA SCE, which is a European Cooperative Society. And this founding took place in June this year, with currently 10 SMEs from the UK, from Switzerland, from Italy, from Austria, and from Germany, which are paying together a stake and which enabled to come or which are enabling to that this commercial activity is coming into life. The dedication of the DMA is to work as a kind of umbrella for those and other SME companies, and enabling them and supporting them to transfer research innovations into businesses. How does it take place? For instance, since research projects are accomplished or accompanied in their dissemination and transfer activities, and these research outcomes are transferred also into these business companies and business models of the SME DMA SCE members. Another thing is to establish business chains on digital heritage. If it comes for an digitization of an archive, it's a question for having a look on the archive and assessing what has to be digitized, making a digitization plan, also to carry out the digitization, but also makes this content available. So that includes various specific services and tasks. DMASCE is proposed to work again as a single-hand contractor to binding together and enabling these chains of business services. Another activity is to enable and to found national and regional support structures. And one example I want to highlight here is the great network of the so-called time machine ambassadors. Those are people, experts, who spread across the European continent and who are eager to supporting the time machine vision and also carrying out support for their specific national communities and also getting in touch with the national authorities in order to proposing that time machine. So you see the list of ambassadors here, and many thanks to this great network who is supporting these time machine activities. What we are doing together with those time machine ambassadors is to establish several structures, but also to proposing concrete projects on a regional and a national level. So one activity is, for instance, to strive and apply for so-called EU regional partnerships. So we recently launched an application in that field of digital cultural tourism, where 7 regions from 6 European nations are taking part, and which is currently under the negotiation by the European Commission. So we are optimistic to share some good news about this initiative soon with you. Another initiative is about the so-called cohesion funds. So it has been quickly or briefly mentioned during the GA session yesterday that there is an activity by the EU region to set regional priorities for funding and for development for the next decade or at this moment. So what is currently ongoing is the activity of the ambassadors to propose some feasibility studies and mapping exercises to national and regional authorities. Let me switch to 3 case studies in regards of those national and regional activities. One thing is to point at the National Coordination Office in Germany, which is active since almost 3 years and financed by the German or by the governments and the ministries from 2 German states. So this financing enables to employ 2 offices which are located in Berlin and which are taking out or carrying out several activities as community development or the organization of network events, but also project applications with the German time machine partners on a national scale. One thing which is currently ongoing out of this coordination office is a member study amongst the German time machine members to learn about their demands, possible offers, but also about the connections between those members and also to learn about how to support this network. Let me point at another activity which is currently carried out in Spain, to be exactly in the northwestern part of Spain, in Santiago de Compostela. And we are really happy and glad about having a statement, a video statement by Professor Victor Acre Vasquez with us, who's the Vice Rector for Students and Internationalization at the University of Santiago de Compostela.
It's a privilege for me to represent the University of Santiago de Compostela in this project. We are one of the oldest universities in Europe that was established in 1495 and has maintained continual activity since then. Because all of this, we are very proud of participating in this project together with the city of Santiago de Compostela and the other institutions from the network of universities of the southwest of Europe. And of course, we strongly support the invitation to the Time Machine organization to be part of the project.
Many thanks, Professor Vasquez, for pointing out on this great network activity. And we have a third networking activity we would like to highlight here, and this is the Finnish activity or the Finnish community and the great efforts and the great attempts Juha Henriksson and Tomi Auranta are doing there. So Juha, I would stop my screen sharing and looking forward to hear from you about your activity.
Okay, thank you, Sander. Hi, everyone. Yesterday in the General Assembly meeting, I gave a very short introduction about the study on the time machine here in Finland, and now I will tell you a little more about it. At the moment, there are not less than 35 time machine members here in Finland. It's quite a good amount, I think, in the European level. The Finnish member network is comprised of many different types of organizations and communities. So this is a very heterogeneous network, which exhibits a wide range of strengths and also a very large development potential seen from the perspective of time machine. In the network, we have a different type of organizations, quite a lot GLAM organizations that could significantly enhance the digitization of their materials and also make their materials available in completely new ways through time machine infrastructure and time machine services. We have also some of the time machines future user groups, that is like researchers, also teachers, and then universities and private sector partners with quite good capabilities to implement time machine services both in the national and also international level. So here I have put all the Finnish members here so you can give a glimpse about the network. We have the large national organization, National Archives, National Library, National Museum. All those hold very large amount of material. Yesterday, in the General Assembly, you heard Mikko Lappalainen's presentation about the National Library and all their collections. And then we have some private archives, because here in Finland, National Archives holds only proportion of the private archive material, and then we have like over 10 private central archives for different types of private material. Then there are also other GLAM organizations, some museums, and also Päivälehti Archives. It's the archive of the I think largest newspaper here in Finland. But also universities, both like research, for instance, this Helsinki Center for Digital Humanities by Helsinki University, but also there are like they could build also time machine infrastructure. For instance, Turku University of Applied Sciences is there are experts on game technology and how game technology is applied, for instance, smart tourism. And also Southern Eastern Finland University of Applied Sciences, there are very much going on when software development is concerned. But also these user groups and professional associations like Finnish Museums Association and Society of Finnish Archivists, but also like teachers, history teachers, and Association of Cultural Heritage Education here in Finland. And also companies who could help us to build software and infrastructure. City Nomad is an expert on map-based software and applications. IT Center for Science, they are just one of the largest supercomputer in Europe. Is just they are just starting to use it in Kajaani. Fabula Productions, Finnish broadcasting company, media companies. Linksoft Group, an expert on language translations. So at the moment I'm carrying out this study on the time machine initiative in Finland. It's funded, for instance, by the Ministry of Education and Culture. The goals for the study is the evaluation of already existing technological solutions here. One of them is the FinnaPoint FI, which Mikko Lappalainen presented yesterday shortly, which is like Europeana here in Finland. It collects a large amount of GLAM sector metadata and also material in one portal. Then assessment on how these systems can be incorporated into time machine and how this can enhance with the help of time machine technology, how we can develop, how we can build something extra layer with time machine technology to the existing solutions. We have a very good level of technical know-how here in Finland, many-sided know-how. For instance, this remote presence or digital presence, which is, I think, very interesting when you are virtually present, not in the history, but just this moment in, for instance, in a classroom in Namibia, being able to talk with the students there, right this moment. How this technique may be used to build some time machine services. Multilingualism, ontologies, also National Library is an expert on different ontologies. Map-based application, mass digitization, especially by the National Archives, and supercomputing power, which can, I think, used not only for Finnish materials, but also in a European level. And how about local time machines? This study we now are going to discuss together how different local time machine projects will build here in Finland. And now I must emphasize that this study is kind of a pre-stage for the project scouting service. Now we have a clearer picture about the future projects, which then with the help of project scouting service may be funded. Because we must have a project in order to use the project scouting service, and this study is one of the main purposes is to get people, organization together to work in projects that will build a bit by bit the time machine infrastructure. On the basis of the study, I will write a final report with some proposals how to proceed here in Finland. Some parts of the report is also written in English because I know that there is this might interest also, for instance, time machine organization office. And also I have taken part of some webinars already, written some articles. So the results will also be communicated through articles, webinars aimed at various stakeholders. Well, thank you. I will thank you, Sonder, for this time to present this study. Here is my contact information. Feel free to contact if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joa, and it's really impressive and great to see how those activities on a national level are going and progressing forward in Finland. So really looking forward and being curious to following the next developments or your future developments there. And many thanks for all activities and for presenting about this nice example. So I hope you can see my screen now again, because I hope you wouldn't mind if I will, in my next couple of slides, set a specific spotlight on the project Scouting Service. And the project Scouting Service is or got initialized and initiated in February this year, and the motivation for that has been caused by various, I would say, demands which came obvious in a community on digital and cultural heritage. One demand is that we had a online survey in 2017 amongst around 5,000 scholars in that field of digital heritage, and asked them what they would assess as the main obstacles for employing digital approaches in their organization. And it's maybe not that much surprising that money was the most frequently named demand from this community. Another demand, or let's rather say challenge, is that there are tons and lots of funding programs extant, and we just found this number for Germany of 1,500 to 2,000 funding programs which you can apply for and use for various types of funding only in Germany. And I suppose that also in other European and worldwide nations, it might be similar numbers on this. And there was a third point, which we have seen or became obvious as challenging, and that is that we are having a great and huge community in that field or dealing with digital cultural heritage, with digital humanities, and with archival, with library, with museum material, but that this community is highly diverse and just rarely seen as a, I would say, a source of income, for instance, also a source of employment, also a source of national wealth and welfare, but often as a cost bearer. And that brought us to the challenge to increase the visibility of digital cultural heritage also for funding bodies and also for national authorities. With those challenges in mind, it was the idea to found the project Scouting Service, which aims on It's on one hand supporting the members of the Time Machine organization in obtaining funding from EU programs. So, as I mentioned, there are lots of programs available on national, on EU level, on international level, but also on regional, sometimes on local, and sometimes on domain-specific level. And it is the idea of the project scouting to support Time Machine organization members in creating winning partnerships, winning proposals for appropriate funding programs. Another important issue from our point is to assist the integration of the TMO priority topics on European and regional scale funding programs to make those important issues, those important topics visible for authorities and also for funding bodies. So as I already told about, we started with the project scouting service in February this year. And at the moment we have around 40 proposals, which got supported in one or another way by the project scouting service. And we are really happy about that 14 of those proposals already got granted. And that means that we have around, or those proposals are worth around 222 million euro. Also, there are some other proposals which are currently under review. 7 is the count on this. And as I told you about, it's also an important task and an important service for project scouting to providing consultancy to funding bodies across Europe and to trade in priorities and perspectives around the TMO intervention areas. So 4 of those consultancy services has been provided so far. And before I tell you a little bit more about those services and what those services or in which ways those services could support you, I'm really happy that we have Andreas Meyer with us, who was one of those persons we were working together in order to preparing a proposal. So Andreas, may I hand over to you?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll try to share my screen. And this you should, oh. My screen now, is that true? You see my screen? I see nodding. Okay, good. So thank you for giving me the floor. So I want to tell you a bit about our experiences with the project scouting team. So you've already seen me. My name is Andreas Meyer. I'm researching in computer science. And when we approached the project scouting team, we essentially had this idea that we want to work on book CT. And the project scouting team helped us essentially to identify a call. So this was the DT12 call, where we then also had to fulfill additional requirements. They helped us putting together the team of European researchers. So we're not the only ones working in this direction. And they helped us to connect with the right researchers all across the Time Machine framework. And, you know, this was a really nice experience that the Time Machine can help you to find the right partners in order to conduct your research. They're well connected, they know who is doing what, and can help you to find essentially the blind spots in your project and which partner can jump in to fill this particular position. But then when you do some of these EU calls, they ask kind of nasty questions. So they ask you like, is your research sustainable? And where does the data go after the project? Will the software ever be used again by other persons? Will the research create economical impact? And how do we make sure that our results are visible and accessible? And these are questions that you kind of, you know, you want to do the research and you want to have an exciting project, but Time Machine project scouting can also help you with answering those questions and how to design your project in a way that you can fulfill all those goals. And sometimes these are things that I personally, well, I like to focus on the research, but of course, these are important questions that have to be answered in your proposal, and the project scouting services can help you with that. So I'm really thankful about the project scouting service. Unfortunately, we didn't make it to get funding with this call, but they helped us to get a score that was way above the funding level. Unfortunately, competition was really hard and there were better projects in that call, but we made it above the funding threshold. And I'm pretty sure that the project scouting services will help us with the next call and will help us in submitting the next proposal. So thank you very much for your attention, and I can definitely recommend the project scouting service. And I give back to Selda.
Many thanks for providing this kind of testimonial, Andreas. And of course, we are happy to support you also in further project applications.
Selda, are you still muted?
Okay. I hope now you can hear me. So many thanks for providing this testimonial, Andreas. And of course, we are happy to support you also in future applications and also other TMO members. And that brings me to one other question, important question. And this is about who can benefit from project scouting. So the point is, project scouting is an unpaid service. That means that costs regular and founding members €0, nothing, because it's already included into your membership fees. So let me have a more detailed look on project scouting services and what they could offer to you and how they could support you. So one service offered is to supporting the TMO members in finding a specific funding opportunity for getting financed their project idea. Another point is to support you in finding partners for your consortium. Who are the best suiting partners on your specific project ideas? And it's also about supporting you to build your proposal strategy, how to set up your proposal in a competitive form, in an ideal successful form. And of course, TMO also offers services directly to project consortia, which could be implemented as, I would say, building blocks into your proposal. One other important point, and this is what I would also love to start with in my next slide, is of course to supporting the other side of project funding, and that means to supporting the development of funding schemes suitable to serve to the community of digital cultural heritage. With regards to this point, it's our goal to make digital heritage and its importance visible to funding bodies and to support a leveraged and demand-based funding. What are we doing exactly? At the one hand, it's to provide consultancy to funders, for instance, to providing consultancy on what topics are of priority and what are current demands in a community in that field of digital heritage. Another point and area of action is, of course, to investigate policies and research strands and to provide a more tailored advice to project funders, to funding bodies in order to what are the, I would say, the next topics, what are the funding demands, priorities, and where is the community also moving to. Besides those services for funding bodies, of course, we are offering various services to the TMO members. And with regards to that, it's of course very much about finding funding opportunities which are matching, which are fitting to your project ideas and proposals. So our goal is to search and find adequate funding schemes to bring your research idea to life. And this is at the one hand primarily about the EU funding schemes, but on various levels. So Horizon Europe, Digital Europe, Creative Europe, Erasmus+, SIF, ESIF, and many, many more. But of course, it's also about various national and even regional schemes we are having in our portfolio and would like to provide consultancy to. And of course, it's specifically for the business-to-business area about to provide best matching opportunities in order to supporting also the business, creating business development area specifically. So for instance, the question of entrepreneurship support and so on and so on. If you have a matching scheme you could apply for, of course, the next big issue is to find or to set up a winning or ideally best matching consortium, and therefore also project scouting services are helping in order to finding those best suiting members. We have or we are maintaining a partner database amongst the TMO members, but also outside the TMO community. And of course, it's an important task we are seeing to disseminate information with regards to partnering events, for instance, and so on, where you can connect to our partners on an European or other international scales. And finally, of course, it's a task on our side to pass over information about info days, for instance, or brokerage events and so on to you as a team or community. Finally, it's about the project proposal strategy support. And this means to support you in develop your project in the best way possible. And this means at the one hand to provide consultancy on building such a proposal strategy, so what to do at which point, what are means of networking, for instance, how to develop your idea, and also to support you in finding consultancy for project writing and pre-evaluation. We are having a differentiation, and specifically for founding members, we are having some additional services proposed here, for instance, to provide some information about policy backgrounds, but also about European networks and groups which are already extant in those specific policy schemes. And as I mentioned earlier, of course, TMO is also willing and happy to serve project consortia on various scales. So that means that the TMO collaborates with its members in project applications. So we are differentiating between different types of TMO's involvement. So in some cases, very strategical and calls, TMO is coordinating proposals and also partnering, inviting partners in these consortia and in these proposals amongst their members. In other cases, the TMO is available to serve as a partner and, for instance, taking over responsibility for tasks as communication or dissemination or also exploitation. So one example in that latter regards is, for instance, to taking care for the valorization and sustainability of project results, or taking out or carrying out within those projects specific calls and the call review and call management and so on. So that's the opportunity to involve TMO as a partner in your consortium. And of course, TMO is happy, and we also support your project with a letter of support. This letter case would mean that TMO is formally expressing also its support to your project in terms of using and providing the TMO-based services and testifying or agreeing in that you can also use and carry it out for your project. So these are various ways to involve the TMO into your project. And that brings me to one last question concerning the project scouting. So as project scouting, we are a team of 4 persons, and we are really looking forward to getting in touch with you. So you will find some more information on the Time Machine website, and please do not hesitate in case you have any project ideas, any project demands, and so on and so on. So we are looking forward to getting in touch with you and to supporting you and your project idea to come alive. So maybe that's on the project scouting. Happy to answer your questions about this later on. And now let's move to one block about the TMO services and how to use these TMO services as a TMO member in the best way. So, as we know, we are having various, or our members are having various backgrounds. Some are SMEs, companies, some are GLAM institutions, some are researchers, but also we are having many other types of, or many other backgrounds of our members. So with regards to the TMO services and how to use these services best, let me start with services offered specifically or maybe of interest specifically for national and regional authorities. What TMO can do here is to carry out, for instance, a stakeholder need analysis and also a capability mapping exercise in order to informing you as national and regional authorities about the demands and also the opportunities of stakeholders in your specific region. Another thing is, of course, to support you in having or becoming aware of current trends on a European and international level. So to supporting, for instance, a trend analysis with regards to what are current funding strands, what are currently emerging, growing topics of importance, and so on. Also, we would love to support you, or we already support some national and regional authorities via setting up or for setting up their programs and their innovation and research policies. For instance, by providing consultancy and some tailored studies about what are the emerging trends, what are the future developments, and so on in those or that specific topics. And one of those examples of such a tailored study for a national authority, we would love to provide you for the province of Lower Austria. So Thomas, maybe I could ask you to say a couple of words on this great study.
So in order to show you that it's not just theory, but Sander is explaining to you one very concrete use case. TMO was commissioned by the province of Lower Austria, or the federal state of Lower Austria, in order to carry out a feasibility study on how to form the digital infrastructure for cultural heritage in the future. This was concretely in the following way. So the representatives of Lower Austria approached us and asked us whether we could carry out such a study, and then we looked inside our community within the TMO members, which members have the expertise in order to take part in that study and also to carry out that study. And then we found four institutions and one company and formed a consortium. And that consortium, led by the Technical University of Vienna, now has started to carry out a study on finding a sustainable strategy for the entire country for an infrastructure for the digital cultural heritage data in the future, to create a general concept how to deal with all the data in the future, to analyze what kind of data and tools do already exist and what will be needed in the future. And the end result of that study should be an implementation concept, also with calculation of what such a future infrastructure would cost, and also a demonstration platform. And all that should provide a very good basis in order to make further decisions for the political decision makers in the country. And I think that's really a good example how the huge amount of manifold expertise in TMO can be used and can be also get into an implementation also on a level of an entire country. Thank you.
Many thanks, Thomas, for sharing this information about this really nice study. And maybe after having this idea about how to use or how to take use of the TMO and the great and important membership or the member base of the TMO, let's maybe switch to another kind of those personas. So what can you do as a project developer to use the TMO services, or which kind of TMO services you can use as project developer? So as I briefly has figured out during the project scouting section, it's very much about supporting you to set up your proposal, but it's also about involving the TMO into your project, into your project activity. One thing which is not named at the moment is, of course, that even, or that also at this stage where you have already successfully settled your proposal, you are more than invited to get in touch with the TMO in order to report about your project and, of course, to get in touch, for instance, with the RFC services in order to implement your project results and vice versa, the project's outcomes into TMO and vice versa. Let's switch maybe to roles and services which may of importance for a company which is part of TMO. So as a company, of course, you can use the TMO network to finding customers. We had this case several times, for instance, where archives are desperately searching for someone who is doing radio conversation as a service, and vice versa. Other network members, companies in the TMO network could exactly offer this specific kind of service. And this matchmaking also took place besides the question of any kind of roadmap and so on, and solved an urgent issue of this archive as a and which became customer of this company later on. Vice versa, of course, Time Machine enables you as a company to have access to research and specifically cutting-edge research results and research developments. So to get in touch with those funding, with those research institutions which are carrying out this research. Another thing, as I mentioned in the beginning of my talk, is that we are providing several services, not directly as a TMO, but closely connecting and cooperating with bodies which are offering, for instance, startup financing or support in developing business plans and scale up and startup opportunities. Also, as highlighted, TMO provides structures for business leverage. So if you are already owning a company, running a company, of course, some larger structures, as for instance, the DMA SCE, would support you in order to connect to other companies and to increase and leverage your business model. And finally, it's of course the R&I program developed and maintained by the TMO, which provides you into a competitive advantage also in terms of connecting to this high-class, high-level research. Let's switch to another perspective. So what could TMO services offer to research institutions? Since the TMO is a really large-scale network, you have heard about the figures in the beginning of our session. It's about support to finding partners and to communicate to such a large-scale community. Also, the funding support we have already mentioned, but also the support and services for dissemination and project data management, project development, which has to be maintained here, or which has to be mentioned here. And finally, it's again the complementary step to what I have mentioned for companies. It's specifically this network which offers up opportunity to transfer your research results into business. And let me highlight one more perspective, and this is the perspective of a GLAM institution. So TMO offers for GLAM institutions access to large-scale service providers. So for data sharing, for instance, and for data aggregation, but also for, I would say, cooperational networks and so on and so on. Also, it's an opportunity to communicate to a large-scale network, and TMO offers services we have heard during the morning session today, for instance, the time machine academies for learning, but also the already mentioned project scouting for funding access, and so on and so on. And also by this large-scale network, it increases the visibility for authorities, visitors, and partners. So that's maybe some ideas to share about how to take use of the TMO services if you are a TMO member. And so we are really looking forward to get in touch with you and to support you to make those ideas, to bring those ideas into reality. And in the end of this talk, let me briefly share some current funding opportunities at a glance, which are available at an EU level. And before starting, so of course we are at the very end with Horizon 2020. The next upcoming framework program, Horizon Europe, has been already mentioned during this conference, but also in many news reports and so on. And the current situation means that there are no more, or there are only very few calls available at this time, but of course that there are many activities and many future prospects which are, I would say, hopefully appearing soon and will be offered up in the next framework program. So one of those opportunities in the Horizon 2020 program, which is still ongoing, is that call for DT transformations. 24 is the number here, and the content is, or the call asks for a coordination and support action with a €1 million budget, specifically on museum collaboration and innovation spaces. The speciality in this call is that only one single project will be funded. It's a CSA action. That means at the one hand, it's about building networks, setting up a roadmap, and so on, and specifically with the dedication to enable cloud-based services and cloud-based collaboration and innovation spaces for museums. And one speciality in that respect is that this call is not only asking for building up a CSA network and proposing and preparing a project roadmap or a report together, a state-of-the-art report and a proposal together with this consortium, but also said at least 60% of the budget allocated here, 60% of this €1 million budget, are already planned to be allocated to third-party experimental projects as specific grants. So that means these grants are up to €30,000 each, and 60% of the budget means that within the CSA activity, 20 sub-activities can be carried out for those so-called experimental projects. This call is currently open. The deadline for this call is the 12th of January 2021, and TMO is already, TMO is in this specific case open to act, to collaborate with partners, supporters in multiple consortia. Another current funding opportunity is the new EIT kick on cultural and creative industries. So it has been also already mentioned in the General Assembly yesterday that this new kick is specifically to support cultural and creative industries, and kicks are operated or carried out by the European Institute of Technology, and they are specifically for enabling partnerships amongst companies, research labs, but also higher education facilitators and networks. A kick, or each single kick, 8 kicks are extant and operating at the moment. The kick for CCI, for cultural creative industries, will be the 9th kick, and each of those kicks has a budget up to €18 million. Since this specific kick is currently under founding or under preparation, we would expect that a call is planned and will be carried out in early 2022. And to provide you an idea about how TMO is connecting here, so TMO is connecting to this activity for this kick on both national and international levels. So at the one hand, the TMO responded as potential partner or even as initiator of sub-proposals on national level in various European countries. Because the national subsidiaries and the national branch is one way into this kick initiative. Another one is, of course, to deal with those with this kick initiative on a European scale. That means at the one hand to get in touch with these operators of the kicks, the EIT Directorate, but also to engage in various European scale consortia. So these are ongoing activities concerning this specific kick for CCI. And that brings me to the end of my work. And of course, we are happy to have your questions, your reflections, and to answer them, and to have your input on this. And for that, I would be happy to hand over to Thomas again, and thank you very much for your attention at this point.
Thank you very much, Sander, for that really very comprehensive overview about the project scouting services and also the third-party services that Time Machine organization is offering. As you could see, many things are still under development because also the new horizon has not started yet. So the very big bunch of work, I guess it will start when Horizon will be started next year. And Sander and to Sander and all of your team, good luck to manage that then. We have two things now. The one thing is we have prepared a Mentimeter. Sander will explain it to you then. And the other thing is You now have the possibility to ask us anything you like. If you want to do that in spoken word, you just need to raise your hand and then you are converted to a speaker. So please, if you want to ask something, so raise your hand and then you will be promoted to speaker. In the meanwhile, Sandra, would you like to explain how the Mentimeter works?
With pleasure. So I think many of you have tested the Mentimeter during the previous sessions. So I suppose you are the skilled Mentimeter users at the moment. In this specific case, we would love to invite you to provide your ideas and specifically your demands on what are services which may the TMO offer or which TMO should offer, which would best support your work. So we are really looking forward to have your reflections on this, and maybe I could switch to the Mentimeter board now, or Caroline, maybe I could ask you to switch to the Mentimeter board. I will stop my presentation now, and we are looking forward to your ideas, your input, and your demands, of course.
So I hope you see our prepared Mentimeter whiteboard. So feel free. I shared the link and the code to it in the chat. Hopefully that worked. And so let's see when the info is coming in.
Answer one question which was raised from the auditorium. So, of course, we would love to learn about which kind of services in general we would like to suggest to include in the TMO portfolio. But of course, in case you can also have or provide your ideas and input for specific services like project scouting or communication or whatever.
Okay, so I would suggest that feel free to enter anything you like into the Mentimeter. In the meanwhile, we continue with our question and answer session. Mm-hmm. We have two persons who want to ask something. Before we go into that, I would like to refer to a question that was raised within the chat by Richard Kordiowski from Vienna. And he's writing that I see a rather big problem in the funding of the single local time machines. They will work on a national level and will therefore need national funding. Isn't this in opposition to any EU funding? Sandra, what would you say?
Yes, many thanks. This is a really important and, of course, a very true question you raise here. And of course, it's our approach at the one hand to cover EU funding schemes. That means to open up opportunities for, I would say, cross-national activities and even for local time machines, as I mentioned, for instance, with those regional networks, there are opportunities which are able to support specific local or regional activities, even by EU means. Some similar opportunities might be, for instance, COST networks or Erasmus Plus activities and so on, which are enabling activities involving several regional and local actors. So that is one perspective on those things. And there is a second issue, and this is something we are having also on our list as project scouts, that is to keep track also with national or even local funding schemes. And this is something where we currently, I would say, continuously increasing our funding database and not only including EU funding opportunities, but also national funding opportunities. So very important question you raised here. I hope I could answer it.
If I know I'm just a moderator, but this is something that I would like to comment on too, because it's really a highly important question. Of course, if you run a local time machine, you need the support by the local authorities and also the local funding instruments. So if you're based in Vienna, of course, you need the support by the Vienna City Council or also by the Republic of Austria. But it absolutely is not in opposition to any EU funding. It's the contrary, because in order to gain EU funding, you always need national co-funding. So if you have national funding for your local time machine, you can absolutely use that as a co-funding also to gain EU funding. So for instance, in a very concrete example, Vienna is located very closely to the neighbor states like Hungary, like Slovakia, and like Czech Republic. So this means Vienna is eligible in the Interreg program. So this would mean you could use the EU structural funds very, very well in order to finance a Vienna time machine. You simply need to find a partner city like Bratislava or like Sopron or like Brno in Czech Republic and set up an Interreg project. And the funding quota for Interreg is quite high. So if you are lucky, you get up to 90% for your project. So it really is not in opposition to any EU funding. So you have to think in a complementary way. There were questions by Jochen and Jim Salmans and Tim Lin. Firstly, Jochen, please.
Thank you. Thank you both for this very interesting presentation about all this project scouting activities. At the end, I was totally pleased to see that a kick on culture and creativity emerges. I observed during some travels during the last Corona months to Berlin, it was difficult, that place like Haus der Kultur in der Welt were offering, for example, the amazing Bilderatlas exhibition. And they do it totally close. They are quite a close circle. And I think these projects, like this special exhibition, should be integrated into this scientific European community. And I would like to ask if it's possible to integrate more such special exhibitions into the scientific community.
Many thanks for your remark on this, Jürgen. So, of course, it's something which is for sure important, and I fully agree with you that it would be specifically important to connect the players and the activities on a European scale, or let's rather say not in European only, but in international scale, to gain visibility for those activities. Of course, vice versa, it's always challenging and depending very much on institutions, but this is indeed something where we together as a time machine community are working on in order to connecting those players, those stakeholders to each other, and also to increasing visibility and also increasing support to those institutions and great activities.
And maybe even a little bit to seduce them. That would be my suggestion. I think time machine is sexy and the people don't understand, all of them, how important time machine is.
Thank you for your comment. So I think we all agree on the time machine is of course a great chance and a great endeavor, and we would be happy to have also the institutions or those institutions with us and to check out synergies and cooperation.
Thank you.
Thanks for your idea.
Thank you. May I pass the word to our dear American friends, Tim Lim and Jim?
Yeah, hello from snowy early morning in Colorado. As folks know, we have been so excited to follow the development of the Time Machine project into the massive and important project that it is. And one of the things we did early on was contribute a kind of informal roadmap for citizen scientist participation in the Time Machine organization and project. And it's important to know that we distinguish, and I think that there's a link to that Medium article in the chat. it's important to distinguish between citizen scientists who are independent researchers and citizen science, which is a project design, often referring to crowdsourcing. They're both very important, but they're distinguished and different. We need to and I think it's the kind of disruption that's going to be happening in the global labor market means that folks like us with non-traditional training and non-traditional experience, but relevant skills and passions will be showing up at your doorsteps. And we need to be able to find a place at the table. So I think it's extremely important, and we are very interested in finding collaborators and funding that would be interested in working with us to implement that roadmap. And I would single out as an example of one of the things that we covered in that article, we've had an idea about something called Scanners Without Borders. And this would use the Transcribus and Scanten technologies, which can be easily sent through the mails to be used as an opportunity to engage the public when we have natural and public disasters that can endanger local artifacts, documents, images, and so on. Things like a flood or fire, that we mobilize folks who have scan tents and can get them to locations and work with partners in those locations to make sure that we have an emergency response to capture that kind of material. So again, thank you for everything you guys do. It's wonderful.
Excellent
we're sorry.
conference.
We're sorry we're on the wrong side of the pond, but we're there in spirit all along the way, and we look forward to hearing from anybody who would like to work with us on this kind of a project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your highly inspiring and motivating words to us. And I think the topic you're raising is highly important, because so far we've just talked about institutions and not just the citizen scientists and the crowd out there that is our most important partner. But I have to admit, transforming the Time Machine project into the organization is a really challenging work. So, and that's why we so far have not made it to set up a department dealing with all the science, citizen science, and with the crowdsourcing stuff, and so involving the public into our work. But it's our plan to do so. As you know, the Time Machine roadmaps contain actions in particular with that regard. And of course, we have not forgotten your citizen science roadmap. So we have it, and we have it in mind that there is something very important to work on. But we've been struggling with all the other stuff so far, so that we haven't made it so far. But be sure we will do that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is one question by Aigner from Timeline Fire in Portugal. She asks about who to contact in Time Machine organization if you want to collaborate. It's very simple. You just need to send to any of us, be it the official Time Machine email address, be it my email address or Sander's one, a simple message explaining what are your aims, what would you like us to do, and then it will be forwarded to the right person in the organization, and you will get the response properly and in time. Are there any other questions? I don't see anyone's in the chat. Let me check the participants. Is anybody among you who would like to ask something in spoken word? So it's the last chance to raise your hand. Okay. So I would suggest that Sander now presents us the result of the Mentimeter. Would you like to do that, Sander?
Yeah, with pleasure. I hope you can hear me, and I see that some ideas were popping up here, and many thanks for your input here, which we for sure will take into concern. And some clusters I can see here is at the one hand to inform, to connect, and to support cooperation on national and regional levels. And this is, of course, something we are most happy to take it with us, also in collaboration with the local time machines and with specific regards to the local time machines. And there's another thing which is about finding good stuff. It's getting more and more important. And of course, I think all of us which are in this field can underline this point. So job exchange for specific jobs in TMO projects, it's an amazing idea. And I have to confess, I would not have an idea at the moment how to distill this, but for sure we will take this with us and think about maybe how to cope with this great idea. So maybe that's in a nutshell. And kick culture, creativity, integrate arts and philosophy. I think this was a point. So, of course, those kicks are, I would say, large-scale networks to combine and to connect and to support actors in those field of creative and cultural industries. And of course, arts and philosophy are belonging to this portfolio and to this specific sector. So from my perspective, nothing which hinders this. And of course, it's important to have both perspectives also in the kick for CCI implemented there. And reuse of great exhibitions. So that's another nice idea. Thank you for this. So of course, it's something we have to check how to deal with this, and if this is something we which may be developed, for instance, in a project or whatever. So I just have a quick look if I have overseen something important. So direct support of local time machine projects. So many thanks for this input. Of course, happy to provide this support. Maybe that's on a nutshell as a short review on what has been already settled here. So again, thanks for your ideas, thanks for your input, and for sure we will take all your input with us and think about how to act with that and how to bring it into life.
Okay, thank you very much, Sander. One technical question. Are the results of the Mentimeter survey, are they available somewhere? Can we have a look at them afterwards?
Yes, sure, of course. So I think you can register if entering your ideas in there and get the slides. And of course, also we will have this presentation with us and yeah, share it and make it visible. Okay, great. Thank you. And they can, Julia has written, they can be downloaded. Very good. So if you're interested in the result, so you can download them. Wonderful. So before we close that session, Andreas Meyer wants to share some information on an interesting cooperation opportunity with us. Andreas.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the floor. Let me share my screen again. And okay, so let's see that this works. You should be able to see my screen again. Yeah, thank you for giving me the word again. We are in the project scouting session, and I want to present a short project that has just recently been funded. It's called Haute Europa. And we are essentially interested in building a kind of time machine for scent and odor. So we're interested in figuring out the connections between historical scents, and we are trying to link them, to extract them automatically. So we want to combine natural language processing, image processing, but also the use of artificial noses, and then also the synthesis of historic scents. And this is a project that I'm very happy to be shortly able to present. And I have prepared a short video summarizing the project.
Hello, I'm Inge Leemans. I'm a professor of cultural history in Amsterdam, and I'm very proud to present the very first European project on olfactory history and heritage. In Europa, we will build a multidisciplinary team to dive into digital heritage collections to discover key scents of Europe and bring those back to the nose.
So for me, tobacco is really a central smell in European history and heritage. It's a hot, smoky, pungent smell, but of course it's not one smell at all, because perfumers and tobacconists and grocers have experimented with scenting tobacco in all kinds of ways. But as a historian, it's also interesting for me because it links to histories of sociability, of trade and colonization, and also health.
We developed tools to automatically extract information from text, and we will analyze, for example, the role of industrial smells. We expect to find a lot of their mentions in text by Italian futurists, for example, smell of motor oil, of ozone, and all the smells associated with industries that we're seeing in those texts as a positive scenario.
From the perspective of heritage science, it's really interesting to focus on smells such as smell of old books in the frame of Old Europa. Old smells or smells of objects tell us a lot about how those objects degrade, how they can be preserved, and also how those smells can be conserved.
As a smell historian, I'm interested in both smelling and reading about olfactory history, but also in presenting these heritage scents to a broader audience in museums, so other people can also smell history.
Yeah, so thank you for your attention. You can reach us here over Twitter and also other social media, and as well on our website, Odoreuropa EU. And one little announcement, because you said it's also important that we kind of find jobs and see that there's open positions available. There will be open positions available in Odoreuropa very soon, so please check our website frequently. We will also publish this on social media. And if you're looking for a new position, it's a great pleasure to announce that there will be a total of 5 new professorships opened very soon at our university, Erlangen-Nuremberg. And you can see here that they will be covering data management in humanities, computing images and objects, computing text and language, computing geospatial social data, computer-human interaction, and governing of data economies. So also look out, there might be professorial positions, faculty positions opened very soon at our institution. And this already concludes my speech. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Thank you very much also to you who have attended this session, who attended all the other sessions during this year's Time Machine Conference. I think it's a great experience to have our conference this time only virtually. So I think this is a way how we can manage our community in the future very well, because we have a worldwide community. As you have seen, Tim, Lin and Jim, they are based in the United States, and this is something that brings people from all over the world very easily together. But nevertheless, we do hope that next year there will be an opportunity to see each other in person again, so that the next year's Time Machine Conference will be again in physically. But within the next months, we will continue with various webinars and workshops in the virtual environment. Please stay tuned and stay interested in what Time Machine is doing. We are still in some kind of transformation process, but we are really confident that within the next months and the next year, we will get not just one step forward, but many, many more steps. And so thank you very much for attending the session. Sandra, Selda, and your team, many, many thanks for preparing the session. And many, many thanks to the entire Time Machine organization team who prepared all the sessions. Kevin in Switzerland, Carolina in Vienna, Daniel in Vienna. And I hope that I have not forgotten anybody. Thanks to you all that this year's conference could be such a successful event. And if you have any questions or any ideas, be aware of the fact that Time Machine is only as good as the ideas of its members. Please send us an email, get in contact with us. We are really happy to communicate with you and to further develop Time Machine. So all the best, stay healthy, have a nice afternoon, goodbye.